Kalimba Bay was always loud in the evenings. The streets were full of people, small food stalls, and the sound of the ocean wind moving through the town. But that evening felt strangely quiet for Naledi. She stood outside the small apartment where she had lived with her family for years, staring at her phone. A new message had just appeared on the screen. It was from her mother, Sibanjile. The words were short, cold, final. Don't contact us again. For a moment, Naledi thought she had read it wrong. Her fingers trembled as she read the message again. But the words didn't change. Her own mother had just cut her out of the family like she was nothing. A painful lump formed in Naledi's throat. Growing up in that apartment had never been easy for her. Somehow, every problem in the house always became her fault. If money was missing, they blamed Naledi. If something went wrong, they blamed Naledi. Meanwhile, her brother Mandla could do no wrong. He was always the favorite, the one everyone defended. Many nights Naledi had quietly cried in her room, wondering why her own family treated her like a burden instead of a daughter. Today's argument had been the worst one yet. When she refused to give Mandla more money, the shouting started. Angry words filled the apartment until her mother finally grabbed her phone and sent that message. Don't contact us again. Now Naledi stood alone outside the building, holding the phone that had just broken her heart. People walked past her on the street, laughing and talking, completely unaware that her entire world had just changed. For a few seconds, Naledi felt the urge to run back upstairs and beg them to forgive her. But then something inside her slowly hardened. Instead, she wiped the tears from her eyes, turned off her phone, and placed it quietly into her bag. Without looking back at the apartment one last time, Naledi stepped away from the place she once called home, and walked into the night completely alone. As Naledi walked through the streets of Kalimba Bay that night, the cold message from her mother kept echoing in her mind. Don't contact us again. The words hurt, but deep inside, she knew this moment had been coming for a long time. For years, her parents had believed she was a failure. The day Naledi decided to leave the small family shop, everything changed. The shop sold basic groceries, and her parents expected both their children to work there forever. Mandla stayed and was praised every day for helping the family. But when Naledi said she wanted to try something different, her parents took it as betrayal. You think you're better than us? Her father had shouted that day. After that, nothing she did was ever good enough. Whenever relatives visited, Naledi would hear the whispers. Her mother would shake her head sadly and say, Naledi left the family business. Now she has no job and no direction in life. Some relatives even looked at her with pity, as if she had ruined her future. The truth was completely different. For the past 3 years, Naledi had been quietly working in Rovuma City. It wasn't easy in the beginning. She started with a small job, earning barely enough to pay rent and food. Many nights she came home exhausted, wondering if she had made the wrong decision. But she never gave up. Slowly things started changing. She learned new skills, worked harder than everyone else, and began building something of her own. But she never told her family about it. Every time she tried to share something good, they ignored her or turned the conversation back to Mandla. Then came the argument that destroyed everything. A few days earlier, Mandla had come to her again, asking for money. It wasn't the first time. Over the past year, he had borrowed money again and again, always promising to return it later. But the money never came back. This time, Naledi quietly shook her head. I can't give you more money, Mandla, she said calmly. I need it for my own plans. Those simple words made him furious. Within minutes, the whole apartment was filled with shouting. Mandla accused her of being selfish. Her father said she had forgotten her family, and her mother looked at her like she was a stranger. That was when Sibanjile grabbed her phone with shaking hands and typed the message, "Don't contact us again." At that moment, Naledi realized something painful. Her family had never really wanted to understand her. They had already decided who she was, and nothing she did could change their minds. While Naledi's family believed she was wasting her life, the truth was very different. For the past 3 years, Naledi had been living and working in Rovuma City, one of the busiest business centers in the region. Life there had not been easy in the beginning. When she first arrived, she didn't know anyone and had very little money. She rented a tiny room above a noisy street, and sometimes ate the same cheap meal for days just to save money. But even during those difficult days, Naledi never stopped believing that she could build a better life. Her first job in Rovuma City was at a large logistics company, owned by a well-known businessman named Mr. Obesai. The company managed shipments, trucks, and cargo moving through several cities and ports. First, Naledi was just a simple clerk. Her job was mostly paperwork, checking delivery forms, answering calls, and organizing documents. Many people in the office barely noticed her. But Naledi treated even the smallest task seriously. She arrived early every morning and often stayed late to finish extra work. When other employees complained about problems, Naledi quietly looked for solutions. She began noticing mistakes in delivery schedules and found better ways to organize the company's routes. Slowly, her supervisors started realizing that the quiet girl at the desk was much smarter than they had thought. One day, a serious problem happened with an important shipment. A mistake in the documents could have cost the company a huge amount of money. While everyone in the office was panicking, Naledi calmly studied the papers and found a simple solution that fixed the problem. That was the first time Mr. Obesai personally noticed her. He called Naledi into his office the next day. Instead of scolding her like she expected, he asked her questions about how she had solved the issue. Naledi spoke honestly and explained her ideas. Mr. Obesai listened carefully, clearly impressed by her calm thinking. After that meeting, things slowly began to change for her. Mr. Obesai started giving Naledi more responsibilities. First, she helped manage small delivery projects. Then she began working directly with important clients. Every time she was given a task, she handled it with the same quiet determination. Within 2 years, many of the company's most successful deals had Naledi's work behind them. She was still humble and rarely spoke about her achievements, but inside the company people started saying the same thing. Naledi had become the silent engine that kept many of their biggest projects running. And while her family back in Kalimba Bay believed she was unemployed and irresponsible, Naledi was slowly becoming one of the most trusted people in an entire business empire. One evening in Rovuma City, Naledi was still working at her desk long after most of the employees had gone home. The office lights were dim, and the building was almost silent except for the soft sound of trucks moving outside in the distance. She was finishing some reports when her phone rang. It was a message from the company assistant. "Mr. Obesai would like to see you in his office." Naledi looked at the time. It was already late. For a moment she wondered if something had gone wrong. Taking a deep breath, she walked down the quiet hallway toward the large glass office at the end. When she entered, Mr. Obesai was standing by the window, looking out over the busy city lights. He turned and smiled slightly when he saw her. "Naledi, sit down," he said calmly. His voice sounded serious but not angry. Naledi sat down, trying to stay calm. Mr. Obesai leaned forward and placed a large file on the desk between them. "I'm planning something big," he said. "Bigger than anything our company has done before." Naledi listened carefully as he began explaining. The company wanted to expand its operations to Makira Port, one of the largest and fastest-growing shipping ports in the region. If the project succeeded, the company would build a massive shipping hub there, one that could change the entire logistics network across several cities. It was a huge project, expensive, risky, and extremely complicated. Then Mr. Obesai said something Naledi never expected. "I want you to lead the project." For a moment Naledi thought she had heard him wrong. "Me?" she asked quietly. Mr. Obesai nodded. "You've proven yourself again and again. You see solutions where others see problems. This project needs someone like you." Naledi's heart started beating faster. Leading such a huge project was something most employees could only dream about. The responsibility would be enormous. If the project failed, it could damage the company. But if it succeeded, everything could change. Mr. Obesai looked directly at her. "And there's something else," he added. "If this project becomes successful, you won't just be working for the company anymore. I'm prepared to make you a partner." Naledi felt completely speechless. For years, she had worked quietly, proving herself little by little. Now she was being offered the opportunity of a lifetime. That night she walked out of the office with the heavy project file in her hands and a storm of thoughts in her mind. From that day forward, Naledi threw herself completely into the project. She studied every detail, met with investors, planned routes, negotiated contracts, and traveled constantly between cities. Many nights she slept only a few hours, working late into the night and waking up early again the next morning. It was exhausting, but Naledi never complained. because deep inside, she knew this opportunity could change her entire future. The next few months became the busiest and most exhausting time of Naledi's life. Every single day was filled with meetings, planning, travel, and difficult decisions. Sometimes she was at Makira Port before sunrise, watching cargo ships slowly arrive at the docks. Other days she was sitting in long meetings with investors who asked hundreds of questions about the project. Many people doubted her in the beginning. Some investors looked surprised when they saw that the person leading such a massive project was a young woman. A few even questioned Mr. Obesai privately. "Are you sure she can handle something this big?" they asked. But Mr. Obesai always gave the same calm answer. "Just watch what she does." Naledi heard about those doubts, but she didn't waste energy arguing with anyone. Instead, she worked even harder. She studied every contract carefully, fixed problems before they could grow bigger, and built a strong team around her. When delays happened at the port, she stayed overnight until the problem was solved. When investors worried about risks, she explained her plans with confidence and clear numbers. Slowly, things started falling into place. New shipping routes opened. More cargo companies joined the project. Warehouses were built near the port, and trucks began moving goods faster than ever before. Within months, Makira Port had transformed into one of the busiest shipping hubs in the entire region. The project that once looked risky was now becoming a huge success. Investors who had once doubted Naledi were now eager to work with her. Money began pouring into the company as more partners joined the growing business. One afternoon, Mr. Obesai called Naledi into his office again. But this time his face carried a proud smile. "The numbers are in," he said, sliding a report across the table. "The Makira Port expansion is now the most profitable investment our company has ever made." Naledi stared at the report, hardly believing what she was seeing. Mr. Obesai continued, "And as I promised, it's time to make things official." Within days, Naledi signed the documents that made her a shareholder in the company. She was no longer just an employee. She was now one of the owners. The news spread quickly across Zamfara province. Local newspapers began writing about the young woman who helped transform Makira Port into a booming shipping hub. Business magazines published her story, calling her one of the youngest rising business leaders in the region. Suddenly, Naledi's name was everywhere. The same girl her family once called a failure had quietly become one of the most successful young businesswomen around. And this was only the beginning. Life in Kalimba Bay continued as usual for Naledi's family. The small apartment was still the same narrow street outside, the same neighbors passing by every day. For them, Naledi had simply disappeared from their lives after that final argument. At least that's what they believed. One afternoon, Sibanjile was sitting outside the apartment talking with a few neighbors when one of them suddenly mentioned something strange. "Have you seen the news today?" the neighbor asked. "There's a young businesswoman on TV talking about the Makira Port project. Her name is Naledi." Sibanjile frowned slightly. "Naledi?" she repeated. The neighbor nodded excitedly. "Yes. Naledi something. She's very successful. They said she helped build the new shipping hub at Makira Port. She's becoming famous." Sibanjile gave a small, dismissive laugh. "That can't be our Naledi," she said quickly. "Our daughter left the family business years ago. She doesn't even have a proper job." The neighbors exchanged looks but didn't argue. Later that evening, Manla came home and turned on the television while eating dinner. The local news channel was already playing. Suddenly, the screen showed the busy docks of Makira Port. Huge cargo ships were lined up near the harbor while trucks moved back and forth carrying containers. Then the reporter began speaking. Behind the success of this massive expansion project is a young business leader who has quickly become one of the most talked about names in Zamfara province. Manla barely looked at the screen at first, but then the camera changed, and a familiar face appeared. Naledi. She was standing near the port, wearing a professional suit, speaking confidently to the interviewer about the project and the future of the shipping industry. Manla's spoon froze in midair. For a few seconds he just stared at the television, unable to believe what he was seeing. "Sibanjile, come here," he said slowly. His mother walked into the room, still wiping her hands with a cloth. She glanced at the TV casually at first. Then her entire body suddenly went still. There was no mistake. The woman speaking confidently on the screen was the same daughter they had pushed out of their home. The same Naledi they had called irresponsible and useless. Now reporters were surrounding her, asking questions, while cameras flashed around her like she was someone important. The reporter's voice continued proudly. Naledi has played a key role in turning Makira Port into one of the fastest-growing shipping hubs in the region. The room fell completely silent. This time no one laughed, because the truth had become impossible to ignore. The moment the interview ended, the apartment fell into a heavy silence. No one spoke for several seconds. The same daughter they had called useless was now standing on television, speaking confidently while reporters listened to every word she said. Sibangile slowly sat down on the couch, her mind racing. The image of Naledi on the screen kept replaying in her head. The way she spoke, the way people respected her, the way the reporter called her a successful business leader. And then suddenly another memory hit her like a shock. The message. Her hands began to shake as she remembered the words she had typed in anger. "Don't contact us again." Just 2 short sentences, but now they felt like the worst mistake of her life. What if she really never comes back? Sibangile whispered to herself. Fear slowly replaced the pride she had carried for so long. Without wasting another second, she grabbed her phone and quickly searched for Naledi's number. Her heart was beating fast as she pressed the call button. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times, but no one answered. Sibangile ended the call and immediately tried again. Still no answer. "Why isn't she picking up?" she said nervously. Manla grabbed his own phone. "Let me try," he said. He called too. The phone rang again and again and again, but Naledi didn't answer his call either. That night, Sibangile kept staring at her phone, hoping it would suddenly ring back. Every few minutes she tried calling Naledi again. Sometimes it rang for a long time. Other times it went straight to silence. But Naledi never answered. The next morning, Sibangile woke up early and tried again. Her husband also started calling. Manla sent messages asking Naledi to respond. Still nothing. Hour after hour passed, but Naledi's phone remained silent. By the second day, panic had completely replaced their confidence. Sibangile kept remembering the cruel words she had sent. Each time she thought about that message, a deep feeling of regret filled her chest. "What if she really listened to me?" she said worriedly. "What if she truly decided to leave us forever?" They kept calling again and again, hoping she would finally answer. But Naledi never picked up. 2 days later, somewhere in Rovuma City, Naledi finally turned on the phone she had switched off the night she left home. As the screen lit up, dozens of notifications appeared all at once. Call after call after call. When she checked the list, she paused for a moment. There were 58 missed calls. From her mother, her father, and Mandla. The same people who once told her not to contact them again were now desperately trying to reach her. A few weeks later, Naledi had to travel to Kalimba Bay for a business inspection. The company was planning to build a new storage warehouse near the coast, and she needed to personally check the location. It had been a long time since she had returned to the town. As her car entered Kalimba Bay, familiar streets passed by the window. The small shops, the crowded sidewalks, the salty wind from the ocean. Everything looked the same. But Naledi felt very different now. This town used to hold all her memories, both good and painful. News of her visit spread quickly. Someone had seen her car near the port and told others. Within a short time, word reached her family. The moment Sibangile heard Naledi was back in town, she rushed out of the apartment with Mandla and their father. They quickly made their way toward the port area, hoping to see her. Naledi was standing near the construction site, speaking with a few engineers and checking some documents. She looked calm and confident, dressed in professional clothes while discussing the project. When her family saw her from a distance, they hesitated for a second. It was really her. But she looked different now, stronger, more confident, like someone who had built her own world. Sibangile quickly walked toward her, her face full of nervous emotion. "Naledi," she called out. Naledi slowly turned around. For a moment, everyone stood silently, looking at each other. It had been a long time since they had faced one another like this. Then Sibangile suddenly stepped forward and tried to hug her. "My daughter, we were so worried about you," she said quickly. "Why didn't you answer our calls?" Mandla also stepped closer, forcing a smile as if nothing had ever happened. "Yes, Naledi," he said. "We've been trying to reach you for days." But Naledi didn't move. She didn't hug them back. She simply stood there calmly, looking at each of their faces. After a few seconds of silence, she spoke in a quiet but steady voice. "I thought you didn't want to hear from me anymore." Her words made the air feel heavy. Sibinjile looked confused for a moment. "What do you mean?" Naledi reached into her bag, pulled out her phone, and slowly opened an old message. Then she turned the screen toward them. On the screen were the same words Sibinjile had written that night. "Don't contact us again." No one said anything. The same sentence they had sent in anger was now standing between them like a wall that was very hard to break. For a few moments no one said anything. The message on Naledi's phone seemed to speak louder than any words. Sibinjile looked at the screen, and her face slowly filled with shame. She clearly remembered the moment she had typed those words in anger, never thinking about how deeply they would hurt. Sibinjile lowered her eyes and took a small step closer. "Naledi, we didn't mean it like that," she said softly. "We were just angry. You know how families argue." Mandla nodded quickly, trying to support her. "Yes, it was just a misunderstanding," he added. "You're still our sister." But Naledi remained calm. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't argue. She simply looked at them with quiet seriousness. "A misunderstanding," she repeated gently. She paused for a moment before continuing. "For years I tried to make you proud of me," she said. "No matter what I did, it was never enough. If something went wrong, you blamed me. If Mandla needed money, I had to give it. If I wanted to build my own life, you called me selfish." Her voice stayed steady, but her words carried deep emotion. "When I left to work in Rovuma City, you told everyone I had failed. You told relatives I was irresponsible and unemployed. Not once did anyone ask how I was doing, or what I was trying to build." Sibinjile's eyes began to fill with tears. Naledi continued quietly. "And the day I refused to give Mandla more money, you sent me that message." She held up her phone again for a moment, reminding them of the words that had pushed her away. "Don't contact us again." Mandla looked down at the ground, unable to meet her eyes. Naledi took a slow breath and looked at each of them carefully. "Now suddenly you want me back," she said. "Now you're calling me again and again because you saw me on television." Her voice wasn't angry. It was simply honest. "Respect doesn't work like that," she continued calmly. "You can't treat someone like they are worthless for years, and then suddenly act like they matter when they become successful." Sibinjile wiped her tears and tried to speak again. "Naledi, please, we're your family." Naledi's expression softened slightly. "I know," she said quietly. "And I'm not here to punish anyone." She looked toward the ocean for a moment before finishing her sentence. "Forgiveness is possible. Families can heal." Then she looked back at them with a calm but firm expression. "But trust takes time to rebuild." For the first time, her family truly understood that the girl they once ignored had grown into someone strong enough to walk away, and strong enough to set her own boundaries. After finishing the inspection in Kalimba Bay, Naledi didn't stay long. She said goodbye to the engineers, got back into her car, and quietly left the town again. As the car moved away from the coast, she looked out the window at the streets where she had grown up. The memories were still there, but they no longer controlled her life. Soon she was back in Rovuma City, returning to the busy world she had built for herself. Work moved forward quickly. The success of the Makira port project opened even more opportunities. New investors wanted to work with her. New projects began appearing, and the company continued expanding into different cities. Naledi spent her days in meetings, planning new ideas, and leading her growing team. People across Zambara province started talking about her story. Newspapers and business magazines continued writing about the young woman who had quietly turned a risky project into one of the biggest successes in the region. Many people admired her not just for her success, but for her determination. For them, Naledi became a symbol of resilience and self-respect, a woman who refused to give up even when her own family had lost faith in her. But sometimes, late at night after work, when the office was finally quiet, Naledi's phone would light up again. Another call. Sometimes it was her mother. Sometimes her father. Sometimes Mandla. They kept calling, hoping she would answer. Naledi would look at the screen for a few seconds, remembering the message that had once broken her heart. "Don't contact us again." Those words had pushed her out of the place she once called home. They had hurt her deeply, but they had also forced her to walk forward and build a life on her own. Now the situation had completely changed. The same people who once told her to disappear were the ones trying again and again to reach her. Naledi didn't answer every call. Not because she hated them, but because she understood something important now. Respect, trust, and family cannot be rebuilt in a single moment. They take time. And as Naledi continued building her future in Rovuma City, she carried one quiet truth in her heart. Sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is simply walk away and build a life no one believed they could have.